I met him in the kind of moment you don't notice until much later, like a shadow stretching quietly behind you before the sun disappears. His name was Ethan Blake, and he walked into my life with the ease of someone who didn't need to try. He didn't chase attention, didn't perform. He just was. And that was enough. It was early fall in Charleston. The kind where the air smells like burned leaves and ocean wind. I was working at this little bookstore on Queen Street, a side job to keep my head above water while finishing my graduate thesis on American folklore. I was halfway through shelving a copy of The Great Gatsby when I heard his voice behind me. "Is it true," he said, "that all tragic love stories end with someone holding a book they never finished reading?" I turned, surprised, and there he was. Tall, soft eyes, messy hair like he'd just walked out of a dream. He had this quiet storm kind of energy, the kind that doesn't flash lightning, but you know it's about to rain. "I guess it depends on the book," I replied, trying not to smile too hard. "And the person?" He laughed, and it was the kind of laugh that made everything feel lighter, even the parts of me I kept buried. That was the beginning. We fell in love slowly, like warm tea cooling in your hands, or sun slipping beneath the ocean. Every day with Ethan was a discovery. He knew the constellations by heart, but hated flying. He didn't believe in fate, but kept every fortune cookie note he ever got. He wrote poetry on receipts and took photos of forgotten things, old shoes on power lines, bent street signs, a locket lying in the dirt. "I think broken things are more honest," he told me once, under the string lights of the cafe where we had our first real date. "They don't pretend to be perfect." I knew I was one of those broken things. And I think that's why he loved me. We explored the city like kids with nowhere to be. We got caught in the rain more times than I can count, laughing until we couldn't breathe. We danced in my apartment at midnight, barefoot, to old records playing scratchy Billie Holiday songs. I would wake up to little notes he left me, "You're the story I never want to stop reading. Even silence feels better when it's with you." He told me he loved me on the rocks at Folly Beach, the Atlantic crashing behind us like thunder in a heartbeat. "I know I should wait," he said, brushing wet hair from my face. "But I can't. I love you, Leah. And I don't think I'll ever stop." I cried. Of course I did. Because in that moment, it felt like the world had stopped for us, like we had pressed pause on everything painful and uncertain. It was just him and me, and the wind, and the feeling that maybe, just maybe, this was the kind of love that didn't break. My friends saw it too. How he looked at me like I was the only real thing in the room. How he remembered the small stuff, my coffee order, the scar on my hand from a childhood fall, the way I hated being interrupted mid-sentence. He listened. Not just with his ears, but with his whole heart. That's rare, you know? It's one thing to be seen. It's another to be known. Ethan knew me. And I knew him, or I thought I did. We made plans. Talked about getting a place just outside the city, maybe adopting a dog. He'd paint, I'd write. We even joked about starting a podcast, something stupid and romantic like Conversations in the Rain. But life doesn't always follow the script. Sometimes, it throws ink across the page when you're halfway through writing the happiest chapter. Still, for a little while, we had our perfect. The kind of love that makes you forget every time you've ever been hurt. The kind that wraps itself around your ribs and tells you, this is safe. This is home. I used to think love was loud, fireworks and music and shouting on rooftops. But now I know it can be quiet too. Just two people, lying on the floor, sharing secrets under a flickering ceiling fan. A hand on your back when the world feels too heavy. He was my quiet. My beginning. My always, until the day I started to fade. Something changed. At first, it was small. I started forgetting words mid-sentence. A tremor in my hands I blamed on too much caffeine. Headaches that came in waves, like the ocean was pushing against the walls of my skull. Ethan noticed before I did. "You okay?" he'd ask, brushing hair from my face, concern softening the edges of his voice. Just tired, I'd smile. Grad school, remember? Stress is practically part of the degree. He didn't push. He trusted me. That was his first mistake. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The first time I blacked out, I was alone in the bookstore. One second I was reshelving the travel section, the next I was on the floor, my head aching, a copy of Wanderlust USA splayed open beside me. The doctors ran tests. Blood work. Scans. They said words I didn't understand and smiled too carefully when I asked questions. When the results came in, they brought me into a room with beige walls and soft chairs that felt like lies. Leah, the neurologist said gently, "We found lesions on your brain scans. We're looking at something degenerative. Possibly autoimmune." I didn't hear the rest. My heart was pounding too loudly. I didn't tell Ethan right away. I couldn't. How do you look someone in the eyes and tell them the future you built together is already falling apart? But love makes you brave, or at least it tries to. One night, after a quiet dinner and a walk through the park where the trees had just started to bleed orange and gold, I told him everything. I watched his face as I said the words. Watched the way his mouth parted slightly, how his eyes locked onto mine like he was afraid to blink and miss something. "What does that mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Are you going to get better?" I hesitated. "I don't know." Silence. The kind that fills your lungs like water. Then he reached for my hand. Held it like he was anchoring himself to the only thing that made sense. "Okay," he said. "Then we fight. Whatever it is, we fight it. Together." I broke. Not out of sadness, out of awe. Out of love. But it wasn't that simple. The symptoms got worse. There were days I couldn't get out of bed. Words slipped through my mind like sand through fingers. My body betrayed me in ways I didn't have language for. I hated the look in his eyes when he thought I wasn't watching, that mix of fear and helplessness. One afternoon, I found him crying in the kitchen. He didn't hear me come in. His back was to me, shoulders shaking, hands braced against the counter. That's when I realized, I wasn't the only one fading. He was losing parts of himself too, watching the woman he loved slowly slip through his fingers, unable to stop it. We tried everything. Diets. Supplements. Holistic doctors. Specialists across state lines. He drove through the night more than once just to sit in sterile waiting rooms with me. He held my hand through every needle, every scan, every soul-draining conversation that ended in, "We still don't have answers." And I could see it in him, the weight. The cracks. He was still showing up, but I saw the cost behind his smile. He was breaking, one small heartbreak at a time. I tried to let him go once. "I don't want you to carry this," I whispered one night, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above us. "You didn't sign up for this." He turned to me, his face a storm of emotion. "Don't say that. You don't get to decide who I love, Leah. And you damn sure don't get to tell me to walk away." His voice cracked on the last word. I think that hurt me more than the diagnosis. But love doesn't protect you from the truth. And the truth was this: I was fading. There was a moment, I remember it clearly, when he looked at me and for the first time, I saw real fear. Not the kind you can swallow. The kind that digs into your chest and stays there. I was sitting on the couch, staring out the window, and I didn't recognize the trees across the street. Couldn't remember our neighbor's name. Couldn't remember what day it was. My hands were shaking. My voice felt far away. He knelt beside me, eyes wide. "Leah," he whispered, "what's happening?" I just looked at him. Silent. Lost. That was the moment everything broke. I watched Ethan fall apart in pieces, slowly, quietly, the way ice breaks underfoot. Not all at once. Just a crack here, a fracture there. But eventually, it's all gone beneath you. It wasn't just the way he looked, although that changed too. The circles under his eyes deepened like bruises he couldn't explain. His shoulders drooped like he was carrying something no one else could see. His beard grew in uneven patches, and he stopped noticing when his clothes didn't match. But it was more than physical. He stopped laughing. That's what haunted me. Ethan used to find joy in everything. He once pulled the car over on a highway just to show me a field of fireflies. He made up songs about grocery lists. He used to spin me around the kitchen with pancake batter on his shirt. But those days disappeared. Like I was disappearing. I saw him watching me one morning, his coffee untouched, his eyes scanning my face like he was trying to memorize me before I vanished. I smiled at him. He smiled back. But it was the kind of smile people wear at funerals, loving, but already grieving. That's when I knew. He was becoming a shadow of the man I fell in love with. And yet, he never left. He built a wall of books and research around himself. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and find him in the living room surrounded by medical papers, obscure case studies, online forums. His laptop glowing like a dying star. His face clenched in frustration. There has to be something they missed, he muttered once, slamming a notebook shut. There's always something they miss. His hands were shaking. Ethan, I said gently, touching his shoulder. You need sleep. I need answers, he snapped. Then caught himself, eyes full of guilt. I'm sorry. I can't do nothing, Leah. I can't sit here and watch you disappear. That word. Disappear. Like I was becoming fog, and he couldn't hold me anymore. He stopped going to work. Took an unpaid leave, told his boss it was family emergency stuff. But we both knew the truth, he didn't trust the world to take care of me while he was gone. And maybe I didn't either. Some days, I felt like a ghost in my own skin. The world outside kept moving, cars, people, weather, while my world shrank to the walls of our apartment. And Ethan, he became my lighthouse. Always there. Always shining. Even as he was burning out. He cooked for me. Fed me when I couldn't hold a spoon. Carried me to the bathroom. Helped me dress. Held me through breakdowns, through confusion, through hours of silence when I couldn't find the words. But he was slipping too. I remember one night, I woke up and he wasn't beside me. I found him on the fire escape, cigarette in hand, and he doesn't even smoke. Just staring into the city like he was hoping it might swallow him. I don't know who I am without you, he whispered. And I'm scared, because you're still here, but I feel like I've already lost you. I sat beside him, even though it hurt to move. I touched his face. His eyes were glassy. Raw. You haven't lost me, I said. Not yet. But in that moment, we both knew, I was already leaving, just very slowly. I wanted to save him from this. From the grief before the goodbye. But he wouldn't let go. He clung to hope like it was the last solid thing in the world. And hope, when it doesn't lead anywhere, starts to rot. He became obsessive. He stopped eating. Barely spoke to friends. His mother called and I heard him lie through his teeth, "We're okay. She's okay." He wasn't okay. But he never stopped trying. That's the part that kills me. Even as his smile faded, even as his body thinned out and his light dimmed, Ethan kept showing up. He became a shadow, but a shadow who refused to disappear. A man hollowed out by love, but still choosing it every day. I think love is easy when everything's good, when bodies are strong, and laughter is easy. But love like this? Love that sits beside suffering and doesn't flinch? That's something else entirely. And even as I faded, a part of me knew, I wasn't the only one in danger. If I left, I wasn't sure Ethan would survive what was left behind. So I did the only thing I could. I asked him to stop saving me. Promise me, I whispered one night, barely able to keep my eyes open. If I don't make it, you live. Not survive. Live. Promise me you'll come back. He shook his head, tears falling silently. Leah. I don't know how to live in a world without you. I gripped his hand, weak but determined. Then become someone who can. There's a moment when helplessness turns into fury, when grief stops crying and starts digging. That moment came for Ethan the day I collapsed in the crosswalk outside our building. 1 second, I was holding his hand, laughing at something, I don't even remember what. The next, the world tilted. My knees buckled. Everything went dark. The paramedics arrived fast. Ethan rode with me in the ambulance, his hands covered in blood from where I'd scraped the pavement. I came to for a moment, long enough to see his face above me. And what I saw wasn't fear anymore. It was fire. After that, something in him cracked open. It was like watching a man walk out of his own grief and into a war. He shaved his face. Cleaned the apartment. Called doctors. Called more doctors. He emailed medical researchers, specialists, foundations. Begged them for answers. And when that wasn't enough, he started investigating. He pulled out every medical record I had since college, scans, notes, misdiagnoses. He laid them out like a puzzle on the floor. He started asking questions no one else had asked. What if it isn't autoimmune, he said one night, pacing the living room. What if it's environmental? Something triggering these episodes? I watched him from the couch, too tired to sit up straight. What are you saying? I asked weakly. He looked at me, eyes blazing. I think someone made you sick. At first, I thought it was grief making him paranoid. But Ethan wasn't guessing, he was building something. He tracked timelines. My health history. My exposure to chemicals. Medications I'd taken. Foods I'd eaten. And then, he found it. A drug I'd been prescribed briefly 3 years ago, off-label for anxiety. I only took it for a few weeks before stopping due to side effects. Nothing unusual. Nothing dangerous according to the label. Except it was dangerous. Buried in an FDA database, Ethan found early reports of neurological deterioration in patients who had taken that drug long-term, reports that were never made public. The manufacturer had settled multiple lawsuits quietly. The drug was still being prescribed, just under a different name. I remember the look on his face when he told me. They knew, he said. They knew what it did. And they let it keep happening. His hands were trembling, but not from fear. From rage. From there, he moved fast. He contacted a whistleblower attorney. Shared everything he'd found. They dug deeper, uncovered internal emails, falsified safety reports, a trail of negligence that ran deeper than either of us imagined. The lawyer called it the start of something huge. But Ethan wasn't thinking about headlines. He was thinking about me. If we can prove this, he said, gripping my hand in the hospital, they'll have to give you access to experimental treatments. Real ones. The kind they don't offer unless you have leverage. But what if it's too late? I asked, my voice thin as paper. His jaw tightened. Then I'm going to make damn sure someone answers for it. The lawsuit was filed. The media caught wind. Ethan, who once hated attention, now stood in front of cameras and told our story. He spoke not just for me, but for the other patients like me. The ones who never got the chance to fight back. And somewhere in the middle of it all, something changed again. Hope. Small. Fragile. But real. One morning, we received a letter. A clinic in Boston, known for its aggressive trials in neurodegenerative treatment, had reviewed Ethan's case summary. They were willing to evaluate me for a new protocol, a combination of treatments not yet approved, but showing promise in early trials. It wasn't a cure. But it was a chance. And we took it. I wish I could say the treatments were easy. They weren't. I spent weeks in a sterile hospital room, hooked to machines, barely strong enough to keep my eyes open. But Ethan never left. He slept in a chair. Held my hand through every injection. Read books aloud when I was too tired to speak. And slowly, very slowly, the fog in my mind began to lift. I started remembering things. My balance improved. My speech came back in full sentences. Not every day was good, but the good days started coming back. He had done it. He'd walked through hell to bring me back. And yet, I saw it in his eyes. He wasn't the same man who once danced in the kitchen. The softness in him had been scorched. He spoke more carefully now. Moved like a soldier always waiting for the next fight. Love had saved me. But it had changed him. They say love changes you. What they don't say is how much, or what it takes from you in the process. Ethan saved my life. But in doing so, he lost pieces of himself he'll never get back. We moved to Boston for the treatment. Small apartment. Thin walls. Strange city. It should have felt like a fresh start, but it didn't. Ethan carried something with him. A weight I couldn't name. He still smiled. Still made my tea just the way I liked it. Still sat by my bedside every morning, whispering, "I love you," like a prayer. But the spark, the part of him that once lit up a room, it had dimmed. And I knew why. Fighting for me had turned him into someone else. One night, I found him in the mirror. Literally. He was standing in the bathroom, just staring at his own reflection. Not fixing his hair. Not brushing his teeth. Just looking, like he didn't recognize the man staring back. "Do you ever feel like you became someone you didn't choose?" he asked softly, not even turning toward me. I walked to him, wrapped my arms around his waist from behind. "I feel like you became someone who wouldn't let me die," I whispered. He exhaled, a sound somewhere between relief and regret. He didn't write poetry anymore. Didn't sing in the car. The man who once danced with me under cafe lights now moved through the world with soldier's silence. He had sacrificed his innocence for me. But it wasn't bitterness. It was armor. He started speaking at advocacy panels. Testifying in courtrooms. Helping other families fight similar battles. He became a voice for the voiceless, precise, commanding, calm. Like a man made of steel and fire. Sometimes I missed the boy who used to talk to pigeons on park benches. But then I'd see him in a hospital room, holding a scared teenager's hand, telling them it was going to be okay, and I realized. That boy had evolved. We were walking through the Boston Public Garden one cold afternoon when I asked him, "Do you ever wish we could go back?" His jaw tightened, his hands deep in his coat pockets. "I miss who we were," he admitted. "Before all of this. But going back would mean losing you." He looked at me then, really looked. "And if I had to become someone else to keep you alive, I'd do it again. Every time." That's the kind of love people write about but rarely survive. It wasn't romantic in the way it started anymore. It had become something deeper. Quieter. More sacred. We weren't just lovers now. We were battle-worn partners. Survivors of something that tried to bury us both. We carried scars, invisible ones, and we never pretended otherwise. I saw what he had given up, the lightness, the simplicity, the part of him that once believed life would just work out. He didn't believe that anymore. He believed in fighting for what you love. There was a moment, months into my recovery, where I finally looked in the mirror and didn't see a ghost. My cheeks had color. My hands didn't shake. My mind was clear. And Ethan stood behind me, watching. "You look like you again," he whispered. I turned to him. "And you don't," I said. He smiled, a little crooked. "Maybe this is who I was always meant to be. And maybe that's true. Maybe love, the real kind, doesn't just change you. Maybe it builds you into the version of yourself you never imagined you could be. Stronger. Sharper. A little darker, maybe. But real. And Ethan? He became someone else. Not because he wanted to. But because he had to. For me. For love. There's a strange silence that comes after survival. Not peace. Not relief. Just silence. Because when you fight for so long, you forget how to just be. The treatments worked. Not perfectly. Not miraculously. But enough. My speech returned. My body held itself upright. The fog lifted from my brain. I still have flare-ups. Days where everything feels fragile. But I'm alive. And more than that, I'm present. I can see the color in the sky again. Feel the softness of bedsheets. Hear my own laughter without it sounding like a stranger's. But survival isn't just about healing. It's about learning to live after the pain. And that's the part no one prepares you for. Ethan and I moved back to Charleston the following spring. The bookstore still stands. The ocean still sings. The city is the same, but we are not. We walk slower now. We speak softer. We've aged 10 years in 3. But we're together. There's a bench at Folly Beach where he told me he loved me, where it all began. We returned there on a windy Sunday, the sun low and gold behind the waves. I sat beside him, hand in his. For a while, neither of us spoke. We just listened, to the surf, the wind, the memory of all the versions of us that once sat there. I keep thinking, I said finally, about how pain and love feel like the same thing sometimes. He nodded, eyes on the horizon. That's because they are, he said. You can't love deeply without risking everything. You can't hold someone that tight without knowing they might slip away. I looked at him. Was it worth it? He turned to me, and in that moment, I swear, he looked like the man I first fell in love with. Not lighter. Not healed. But whole. Yes, he said. You were always worth the war. We don't chase perfect anymore. We leave dishes in the sink. We cry without hiding. We don't need to fill silences with words. We've seen too much to pretend life is tidy. And maybe that's what love really is, not the butterflies, not the drama, not even the happy endings. Maybe love is what remains after the storm. Maybe love is the hand that never let go. I still have moments, usually in the early morning, before the city wakes up, where I ask myself why we had to go through all of it. Why us? Why that drug? Why my body? Why him? But the answer is always the same. Because love demands everything. And what it gives you in return, is the truth. He told me once, I don't need a perfect life. I just need it with you. And now that I'm here, sitting beside him, the ocean licking at our feet, the wind tangling my hair, and the weight of everything we've carried behind us, I finally understand. Love and pain are not enemies. They are one and the same. And I would live it all again, every ache, every silence, every moment I thought I was losing everything, just to sit beside him now. Still here. Still holding on. Still in love.